It's the Common Man Podcast with your host, David Redmond.
Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of Common Man Podcast. Today, joining us is my buddy, Ceasar. He's bivocational. He does transitional housing for people that can't find stable homes because they're out of drugs or out of abusive environments. And then he's also a professional physical therapist. And so we had the chance to work together. We've been working together for about 4 or 5 years now. And AD has a really beautiful model that seems to meet a lot of people's needs. But I wanted to have him here today because, one, I could never get on his schedule just to take him to lunch. And so I thought I'd invite him on the podcast so that he could share with the general public that this model does exist. And I guarantee it's in your market somewhere if you can put together the team to bless people. So AD, when did you get this idea? And what's the name brand? And who does it meet? And how did it start? And can you give me the little backstory on it? Because I've never heard it. We worked together and I've never really heard it.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. And again, thanks for inviting me on the podcast. I consider you a friend and a brother, and I'm more than honored to be having this conversation as we talk about serving folks from the margins. So our housing model and platform is called the Good Shepherd's House, and that name is really significant. As we're in the middle of the pandemic, and all of a sudden I'm hearing all this news about the lack of affordable housing and the increase in homelessness, and there seemed to be no urgency around what we should do. It was all these long-term plans, and I thought, well, what can we do? What are the most simplistic things? And I thought along the lines of family, and what happens in a functional family, and that is when one of us is in transition or looking for that next step of our life. There's always mama's house. There's always grandma's house that you can go to and you share space. It's very simple. And so I thought, is there a model? And sure enough, this is not new.
Right.
There are a lot of platforms, not-for-profits, that are already doing it. I thought, well, why, if it's successful, why isn't it scalable? And I realized there's a reason. Well, and in the not-for-profit space, unfortunately, there's a space where it may become too resource intensive. And so to correct what you said in the intro.
What do you mean resource intensive?
Well, the giant that we're fighting is really not homelessness or even affordable housing. The giant that we're really fighting is poverty. And so we wanted the model from the mission, the vision, our principles to reflect more wealth, abundant mindsets, which meant that we had to figure out a way in which we can add more value without being the first beggar looking for donations, so to speak. What I mean by that is we thought, especially if you think back in 2020, when the real estate market was going crazy. And I didn't think that if our entity was a not-for-profit 501c3 with a board, that we would have a chance to compete, talk to investors, be able to get in that space to get the properties to bring people off the streets or transitioning out of unstable housing. So we actually formed as a for-profit company that does not-for-profit work. And so that allows us to create these really unique partnerships with community partners. And there are several across Anderson and Greenville that we partner with. But at the same time, we partner with investors like yourself, right, who actually are in the marketplace doing great work for the Lord. And so we're kind of this unicorn, so to speak.
I am in the trenches with AD every day. And we were just laughing about his day he spends doing physical therapy for people in a mostly retirement community in one of our like big lake environments that is in the upstate in the Kiwi community. It's beautiful and wonderful and like mostly privileged, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not casting shade. And then in the evenings, he hustles back and does ministry for the people that live in these homes.
That's right.
And you've got girl homes that are specific, only girl only, women only.
Yep.
And then you've got guy homes that are men only. When you started, you say we. Who was we?
I've always been part of team sports, so even if it's just me, I'm always going to say we. But my wife is a big part of the things that we do, so I'd be amiss if I, don't mention Kelly and her support in helping us operate. We have 7 units. We have 38 beds that we're able to help folks transition out of homelessness, and that. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for, obviously, for my wife, but also for a lot of the community partners who've trusted us with the people who they've already been serving.
Right. And just to get I'm going to hack this. I'm going to destroy this. But to understand homelessness, there are state, city, and county services in every town, just about. And they usually they have limited resources and limited staff. They also have limited strength in the pastoral capacity. And so a lot of stuff falls through the cracks. They are there for like emergency issues. All of our communities in the United States of America, praise the Lord. There are usually facilities in place for a person that needs 1, 2, 3 nights. If they meet criteria of being clean, if they have like maybe smaller size families versus bigger size families. So there are things in place, and one of the things that AD had noticed and had a heart for is, well, where does people go next? And so you saw an opportunity to allow space for people that don't have anywhere next steps. Why don't they? So then outside of your model, what would someone do next? Like, let's just call a lady, Frida, where would she go next after she left the Salvation Army?
Well, sadly, that cycle would probably continue of bouncing on the streets to expensive weekly motel stays, in cars, couch surfing with friends.
How do they afford expensive weekly hotels? Everybody has this expensive weekly hotel and they're outside of their nicest downtown area, and we have one. How do they afford that $1,000 a week?
Well, they don't. I think typically what happens is you see maybe a week that they're there, and then they're on the streets again. There's this process of cycling into a hotel and then out on the streets again. And so this is a lot of times what we call the hidden homeless. There's so many folks who would classify as being homeless that are not necessarily right on the street, but they're doubled up with someone else. They may stay in a toxic relationship just so that they can remain housed and safe. And
safe as they've ever felt.
Well,
it's not safe, right?
Being on the streets in the middle of winter is not kind to anyone,
right.
and especially for women. And we've noticed in Anderson that there are not enough women beds in the shelter, and there are not enough women beds when it comes to transitional housing. Now, we don't really use that term because it has such a negative connotation. We use the term shared or co-housing. Shared housing is a much more positive term, as we're trying to get folks not necessarily in this kind of institutional cold environment, but really in a home environment. And that's our secret sauce. And
so Frida finds you through a pastor that she drops in on, and what happens next?
Typically what will happen is that pastor, whatever community provider, whatever service, it may be the Anderson Sheriff Department, corrections. We have all kinds of
feeder outlets.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. My phone blows up. But and the first thing is just really talking to the person and hearing their story. Because if we're creating a culture and atmosphere where people are going to live together, we want to make sure that everyone is the right fit for each other.
Which means that in most of the homes, you call the home co-living.
Call it co-living.
So like in every bedroom, there is more than one person there. And somebody has to assume the role of pastoral care to put these people together into safer into even homes where they can be safer and feel safe.
Yeah, I think we'd like to think, if you right now throughout the country, and especially the Southeast, we have our college kids starting school again. Some of them are transitioning off the campus in the dorms, and now they're living in apartments with friends. And some of them are sharing rooms. They may share a bathroom or whatever, but they're in a shared living environment. So student housing really was our first introduction to how to best steward resources and make it affordable for an individual. And so, but just like in that college environment, picking the right person and understanding the likes, dislikes, and then having someone there as the responsible person to ensure the environment is going to be safe, it's going to be productive for everyone, is a really big key of this.
So we've had so many conversations about this because we've been pushing this rock uphill together.
Sure.
In the first home that we did, and so Frida gets a hold of you. You do have an availability. Like right now, do you even have an availability for a woman?
No.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons we're having this conversation.
Yeah, it's very difficult with women, and what we've found. We are the largest provider of shared housing in Anderson County.
Okay, y'all's brand,
the Good Shepherd's House,
is the largest provider of shared housing in the county.
And we feel that we could double, and there probably would still be a need. And so we would have that conversation with Frida, and then we would meet face to face. Now, that process is done intentionally. One, because we're not emergency shelter.
No.
We're really the next step.
Right.
And so for the next step, there are a few things that we look for that are critical, what we think are success in the home. There has to be at least one foothold, one barrier, one building block of progress on the individual side, meaning they've completed a program, they work, they have an income, there's something. They're referred from a community partner who's been working with them, so that we know that, hey, this person is ready for the investment that we're going to make into them. And so we're more developmental than, hey, you come here, get a handout.
That's such a relief. Because I know so much about it, I'm just always very appreciative, and I really love the work that we get to do together and that you do on a much larger level than I do, because it's so needed. And so Frida wouldn't have a place to stay right now. So where would she go? Do we know? We don't know.
Sometimes they actually leave the city. We've had people get on the bus, they hitchhike out of town, they think the next city they'll have more opportunity. It's another opportunity to maybe go find another shelter for another 30 to 60 days.
Got it. Okay, so
they may
she'll bop up to Greenville potentially and get 30 days from that shelter, and then she'll come back and potentially get, if she meets the criteria, get 30 more days.
Yeah. And so breaking this cycle, and if someone would say that there are many causes of homelessness, and there's many causes to why housing is not affordable. What I can tell you, that many of those factors in our model, hey, we can't control that. But what we're after, what we think, again, is the giant that we're fighting, has to do with how does the individual need to change to make that next step. And so this mindset of poverty this lack and survival mindset, this, hey, it's someone else's responsibility and not mine. If that changes, that's the greatest miracle that you'll ever see through this process. And we see it. And, folks ask us all the time, what's success? What's success for your
What
program?
is success?
Success isn't just getting someone off the streets. That's easy. That's
Money
easy.
isn't the solution.
No. When an individual goes from only thinking about themselves, surviving, to thinking of how they can add value to someone other than themselves by volunteering with their local partners, or, hey, I'm doing this now for my family. We feel that that's the greatest success that we could have and the impact that we can have in our communities in this space.
Where did this inspiration come from within you? Why do you care about, why do you work more and impoverish yourself? Well,
I mean, that's easy.
Where did it come from? Why do you have this hunger?
Well, if you know much about the story of AD, my mom would like me to be called Adric. That's my full name. But growing up in South Georgia, I really grew up in abject poverty. And
where in South Georgia?
Little town called Thomasville. And I experienced temporary homelessness. I experienced poverty throughout my early life, and my family has been generationally impoverished. So I come from a rural community where that was rampant. That was what I saw. But by the grace of God, I had some people around me who encouraged me. I was pretty bright in the classroom. I was a pretty decent athlete.
Handsome as could be. I mean, I'm sure they were just like recruiting for movies.
No, man.
Speaking parts.
No, I really just got an opportunity to advance education, come to South Carolina, was a student at Furman, and I was immersed in a totally different environment. For the first time in my life, I was immersed in a group of people who did not have my lived experience, but through the close friends and their families, I realized, like, wow, it was the first time I saw folks who didn't look like me, but who cared and had compassion towards folks like me. It wrecked my worldview.
It wrecked your worldview.
Yeah, it wrecked my worldview.
What was your worldview prior to that?
Prior to that, it was, no one can care about us. And when I got exposed,
like your family,
like my family, like other people of color.
Okay.
But when I was able to be around,
nobody can see me. Nobody that's not of color can
understand.
Can like even involve themselves in a meaningful way.
Right. And again, at 18 years old, away from my...
Whoa, and you were completely away. Were you playing football then?
I was playing football then.
You got recruited to play on the football team? What was your position?
Played wide receiver.
Do you have a photo of that on your phone?
I don't.
Man,
that's a different life, man.
I would love to see that photo.
That's a different life.
You keep telling me. I've asked you this before, I think.
That's a different life, man.
I'm going to Google it. If I find it, I'm putting it in the description below. I'm just kidding.
That's a whole nother story. So even that story, when I was living in South Carolina the first time, so my mom, this is how poverty can be perpetuated. So my mom was only 16 years old. My dad was 17 years old when I was born. My dad left my mom and I when I was 9 years old, and I didn't have a relationship with him for 25 years. And so my name for much of my life wasn't Adric D. Ceasar, it was Adric D. Harrison. So when I came to the state back in 1992, my last name was Harrison. But when I was in my 30s, the Lord began to speak to me because there was always a question in my heart. Although my dad wasn't in my life, my paternal family was and always was. And we hadn't reconciled yet.
With your pops?
With my pops. But I heard the Lord say, change your name.
From
Harrison to Ceasar.
for what purpose?
At the time, I had no idea, other than Ceasar is my dad's last name.
So Caesar, and so change from mom's name to change back to dad's name,
It didn't. I heard it
or change to dad's name for the first time.
for the first time, and so
And you heard the Lord say that.
I heard the Lord say it. It was confirmed by some people that were in my life at that time, and at first I was reluctant, but realized as I was walking with the Lord, probably more than I had been in my life at that point in time, I did. And after it was done, maybe a few weeks later, I get this random call from my dad. And it was small talk, and then he says, listen.
And he was 42-ish.
Yes.
Never seen his son.
No. I was a little bit younger, maybe 35, 36.
He was.
I was. He was much older, right?
Yeah.
So he's in his 50s.
Oh, okay.
So he said, hey, I want to apologize. He says, but, the years just build up. It was like it got harder and harder. It was bigger and bigger, and that I couldn't move it. I didn't know where to start.
Mm.
And then he said, but you changed your name. And almost like someone waved a wand and all of that disappointment vanished. And we had a relationship from then on. He got to know his grandkids. My father passed away a few years ago. I officiated his memorial services, and it's just one of those God stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I come into this space knowing like trauma and pain and lack and
was it mostly an African American community down there?
It's interesting. The same dynamic that you were talking about regarding my bivocational mindset is South Georgia, meaning it is equally black and white.
Wow.
The city is actually surrounded by plantations. So some of the, wealthiest people, not just in the area, but in the country, are landowners there. And so depending on which community you're in, your experience there could be totally different. So when I was growing up there, I saw it one way, but now when I go back, because I've changed, I experience it totally different than my family can. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
I bet you, I can't even begin to understand.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So I have there's an investment.
How does God do that?
Well, I think, what's really interesting is, I think, the Bible is like full of examples of, the transformation, him pulling us out of a situation and then rebuilding us, changing our mindset, and then sending us back in similar environments to help those that are experiencing things that you've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at folks who come in our houses, at this point, they don't see themselves in me, but I certainly see me in them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's how it works.
I probably identify with that.
Really? What way?
Seeing how easily I could be one of the fellas living in one of the houses that we own and manage.
Yeah, it's humbling, right? We've had memorial services for folks who've OD'd in our houses.
Yeah.
We've housed folks who were escaped human trafficking. These are all folks who've lived in houses that we partnered in, and
right.
and but with that being said, we've also had these wonderful experiences of folks transitioning out of our houses, getting their own places, and now they are volunteers at some of our more strongly reputational organizations in the area.
Wow.
So, we don't think that success is like a really good free throw shooter on the basketball court, like 90%. That's really not, we think probably more baseball, right? Like if we're hitting, 300, we're like Hall of Famers, right? So probably success rate is probably around 30%. If we hit that, we feel like we're right on target.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about zooming back into what you're doing real time now is so then what are the hurdles to growth? Because people will be listening and thinking, oh, they got it solved. But yet how many people are still left, and how many Fridas right now could move into a good shepherd house home, do you think, right now?
Yeah, there are a couple of hurdles. On the surface, what makes it easy, we could easily say zoning. We can easily say getting the right financing to get more properties. But I think both of those things are, we can find solutions for those. I think the number one hurdle, and this is we're gonna kind of wrinkle some feathers right here, okay? The number one hurdle, I think, is our faith community. And what I mean
what did you say?
Our faith community,
Which is the church.
the church.
Why?
Well,
Why are they the number one hurdle?
Well, because getting someone house isn't the issue.
Meaning the homes are available.
The house, getting in the house, like our most marginalized folks, getting in the house, having a place to live isn't the problem. In order to grow, to scale, we need more people who are willing to not just give financial resource, but giving the most precious resource, which is time. Yeah. And we need more churches who would, quote unquote, adopt a house, adopt a bed, be a big brother,
like that.
Call individuals on their birthday, check up on them,
Right.
See how they're doing. That is the family. That is, when I had the vision of the Good Shepherd's house, that's how it looked. Not just the individual unit, but this bigger net that incorporates our housing model, agencies, and faith communities working together to circle around individuals to help them in their most vulnerable times.
Mm-hmm. I've been talking with a few different people now that have found me. 2 different churches, unrelated, on back-to-back days, reached out to me about real estate. And I'm like, well, Father, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And so I sat with both of them, and I've been like penciling through a system like yours. And I told them we needed somebody in charge of real estate that has funding.
That's right.
And I was like, I can fulfill that role. We need a pastor to assume full responsibility for the shepherding of the person in need. We have abundance of need.
Oh.
That's the third person. And then we need the sheep or the congregation to support and focus their attention on that family or the home or both.
That's right.
Not only that, when we were talking through the model, I was like, I would posit that right now, every church in just Anderson, I bet there's 5 homes that are sitting unoccupied, doing nothing. Yeah. That the congregation elder, whoever she might be, typically it's a female widow. It's sitting in her holdings. Mm-hmm. Husband has passed, and all the wealth is in these Caucasian widows' hands. And I talked to a young grandmother who was the head of her Catholic organization, and you know what? And so this has been amazing. There's been a bunch of conversations going on because I'm trying to put them between a rock and a hard place to see if they'll look at their resources. Mm-hmm. But we were talking about the model, and she said, "Well, who's going to own the property?" And I said, I love that you asked that, but I don't like that we always go there first because it shows a lack of willingness to reflect exactly what the early church did, which is to sell and stuff like that. I'm happy to buy it. And then she's like, well, how much are you going to charge? And I was like, I will charge rent to the pastor or the community, respective of the price.
That's right.
And so isn't this cool that like a person who's doing nothing with grandmother's house has the opportunity for it to potentially be housed by 4 women in transition, like right now, maybe tomorrow. I could get the house ready probably very quickly. And she kind of looked at me. She's like, that's a really good model. And I said, you should ask your ladies and see if they're, that kind of thing. Another woman said, which was really interesting. She said, well, I don't think we have the reason. I said, here, we need to do a year lease, like, which is what AD and I did. We did a year lease because the natural darkened response to that is, oh, well, the landlord wants a year commitment. He's not really in the game of offering short-term solutions, right? And I just flipped it and I said, does this family deserve a year? And she was like, Jane, who has 3 kids, who's been staying without her kids at a Salvation Army or something like that, wouldn't it be great if the congregation took $7,000, whoever, one person, many, and paid a landlord or a real estate person a full year? That would be the most amazing recipient of the love of Christ through the congregation, because all these people that are sitting at home going to Bible and going to Bible studies, which is wonderful, don't hear me wrong, could go to the house afterwards.
That's right.
And cut the grass.
That's right.
Could administer care. All these grandmothers could go into the homes and show these women how to cook,
bring a meal,
or show the kids how to do laundry, or show the sons how to fish, or walk their own property, or do a Bible study. And so I was like putting back before like these groups of churches that have financing, and them getting on the hook for a full year they were like, oh, I'm not prepared to swallow that. And I said, but I pointed them back to your model. I was like, but you see how this model is the only way that it'll give them a chance to stabilize their own fears of security issues that they've been having for 35 years. And they were like, absolutely. That's probably the only way to do it.
It's the wise way to do it. And you mentioned, First Church. So we go to the book of Acts that talks a lot about the quote unquote church in the homes. And they met from house to house.
Amazing.
And, so in the conception of this, the launch of this, we always thought that every unit, one, would glorify God, but also would be another bright light in our city where, if done just right and we get the right proper pastoring around it, this is a way in which a church can grow. Because many of the individuals that we serve, they're not coming to the large local church, assemblies on Sunday. They, not yet anyway. They just don't feel as welcome there. And so why not grow an extension? And so I think that sales system is a way that we can actually have way more impact in the city without anyone knowing it.
It's really interesting. Like I used to work for CBRE. It's the biggest commercial firm in the world. And they do all these market studies. Like good commercial real estate. You do tons of market studies. You do tons of sales comparables. You do tons of like rent comparables before you spend $750,000 to renovate and put a McDonald's in, right?
Right.
Or like to study a market that's growing outside of Beaufort, you do all of these like market studies and traffic count and household incomes and stuff. And the main model that's being presented, I bother a lot of people when they want to start talking about it, which is to build new in the alphabet, right? And because I've done so many like different market studies, like in order for a market to grow in a healthy way, you really need to keep the people that are living there being able to afford to live there.
Right.
And so I'm all for anybody's solvings. But what happens if they build a new $150,000 house, right next to a home that's worth $12,000 and has been infested with drugs for 35 years? And then you get one or two bad tenants.
That's right.
The bank is usually already leveraged to put this insanely expensive property next to another one. No local person really probably feels safe going into this strangely new house. It doesn't look anything like that they're accustomed to living in. And the obligation of rent is usually higher because it's an expensive property and people's resources need to be protected. And like grandmother donated all this money, and now we can't afford to only charge $450. We still got to charge $1,000.
It has to pencil out.
And I'm like, last time I sat before a brother, I was like, so who has actually been gentrifying? Like the only way to really not gentrify an area is to take the decaying assets and revitalize them up to a level where you can charge lower rent than anybody else and put a marginalized person in there where they can get safe and they can get long-term occupancy and learn what utilities are and learn what doing a yard is. And it's a beautiful model. I can't seem to find its problems.
It's a great model. And, when I, heard what you were doing, in some of our, decayed communities, I thought, he would be someone
got me
great.
Sweating talking about it.
Good, man.
It might be the coffee or it could be a conversation.
But because of my rehab background, I love repurposing things.
Yeah.
I love, looking at someone's potential and saying, hey, how can we draw this out? And so I do that on the physical side of things when it comes to health. But I like to think that, from a spiritual side, that's where my passions are as well. And, when someone comes into our houses, that's just the beginning, man. You don't really know anyone until a person puts their head on the bed.
Yeah.
That's when you realize where all the issues are. And that's when all the fun begins, as they say.
And so what you're reiterating is intimate involvement, whether it be with a pastor, a person who has already been in the system for 3 years, is maybe the house person that lives there, or a guy like yourself or a gal like yourself with equal pastoral energies, desires, and passions to pay particular attention to the people in this one home.
David,
the pastoral role is like 100% essential.
It's a discipleship model.
Yeah, it's a discipleship model.
Yeah, that's really what we're doing. And, we're, the first objective is to get men or women to be able to be responsible for themselves, right? Like, what does that look like? And in the houses, it looks like, can you steward this bed?
Yeah.
Meaning, can you steward? We're laughing.
Yes, my 7-year-old, he would say no.
Well,
and some days me.
But I think that's a great point that you make about the 7-year-old.
That's so good.
Because many of our folks, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, almost 70-year-olds who've grown up in dysfunctional environments were never trained the importance of just taking care of that little thing. And so I think it just violates all spiritual principles to think, hey, I'm going to totally not steward this bed and think that I'm going to have my own place and take care of it. It just doesn't work like that. So we give responsibility not as something that's going to hold people back, but as something that's actually going to propel them forward.
Yeah, you're definitely half glass full approach to conversations and care.
Sure.
Is helpful for people to see that, like, I understand your problem, but what could you do to make it better? And they're like, I could make my bed. You could make your bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a gift.
Absolutely.
You could throw the milk out when it's rotten. But this is your fridge.
That's right.
For how long? So I mean, it's wonderful. And so again, the hurdles you think primarily are the shepherding, the discipleship roles?
I would call it not even on a formal way. I think it's just the loving the neighbor principle, meaning we just need more people that sincerely have love for others, that not in word, but in an actual action, meaning, hey, we would like to be involved. And I think in the ideal situation, we would have a church with membership of say 500 people, and those 500 people would be responsible for a house that houses 4 people. So
Or do you have any of those models right now?
we have it now. We would like to present to more churches to see who would be willing to be a part of it.
So we're basically saying the same thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool, man.
Yeah. I think this is the only way. And then it also allows.
I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No.
Like my invitations and explanations.
No, not at all. And then it does this, like, and you know this, much of our churches, they don't have real estate background, so they don't need to be the landlord.
No, and they don't need to be the property manager
Either.
Because you need a disciplinarian that knows law.
That's right. And so, but what they can do really well, they can come in and be the coaches, they can come in and be the brothers, they can be the cheerleaders. Like they can actually come and do what the church was meant to be.
I mean, the associate pastor, think about how like one of the churches that came to me, they do have a family that's made some comeuppance.
Mm-hmm.
The church is in more of a marginalized, distressed environment, but they have a husband with some kids, and the wife is a bit in and out. But they've made some comeuppance, and they've said like, we need to find him a place. But the church is folding, and so ultimately that's probably not going to come to fruition. But like in every congregation, I promise you, if you look down your pew, there is a person there that either has housing issues, has a housing abundance, or has a family member that has a housing issue. If you're in the South,
That's right.
because we're still mostly we're lots of rural.
Lots of rural. And, again, back to the barrier.
I hope this creates too much work for you. I hope that like you get like 50 properties and
back to barrier.
yeah.
The perception of what these types of housing models would mean to neighborhoods. So the NIMBYism, not in my backyard, these types of mindsets are also barriers. And I think,
have you run into that with any like any deals that you tried to do that got a kibosh?
No, I haven't had any deals that were upended because of it.
Okay.
But we did run into some initial situations in the neighborhood where the neighbors thought the worst of us before they got to know us. But eventually what they found out is that the guys who lived in that house, were doing manual labor for them. They were like being a good neighbor, and then
oh wait, this works really good actually.
Right, and then eventually, which the principle for us is we first want to be a good neighbor, and wherever we are, can we be a good neighbor? Because everyone has to win, and that's our motto. Is like it's not a good deal unless everyone wins.
Okay, and so like when you hear people that are in the full nonprofit that aren't for profit, you guys are for profit, and one of their pushbacks is a big pushback that like you guys have divided interests because you're for profit?
Well, we've been very fortunate because I think everyone that's in the space have recognized our willingness to be a solution. And some of the largest church organizations in the city have pledged their support to us, not just in word, not just in platitudes, but with their resources, with referrals. And so they
referrals of people in
referrals
need.
of people. And when there are members of our houses or who need to be housed, they'll pay their rent. They'll
and that's
so
cool.
So I bet that this for-profit company has received, with as far as rental assistance, probably from more churches than we probably got from any other source, single source there is. And no one asked. Like they just know that we're doing the work and they know that we're serving God.
And our communities are very, very hungry for a sustainable solution.
That's right.
But there's so many people vying to offer the solution that don't seem to aren't ready
Mm-hmm.
and probably aren't clear on what it takes to be sustainable.
Right.
You know, the Bible says that wisdom is known by its fruit. Just because you're passionate about an idea doesn't mean that it's wise. Wisdom is known by its fruit. So the implementation of an idea and then the results of the idea will indicate whether or not the idea is wise.
That's true.
And you know, a big bang can go out like really be like impactful, but be gone. And
Well, there's some really well respected people who've been doing the work in this county long before I got here. And trust me, when I first showed up, you know, this kid, you know, I don't live in Anderson County. I live in Greenville County, and I always tell people, like, I was called here, but the folks who have been doing the work, and I would like to say are the major stakeholders here, they watched me from afar, then from near, and over time, now those folks are my brothers and sisters in the space. And, you know, to your point, you know, they were watching the fruit and
waiting on it,
waiting
to see what maturation,
Yeah.
what the maturation process would be.
Absolutely. And
Which is good.
yeah,
It's a good usage of resources and patient.
yeah. And really you know, we hear horror stories. You know, we get folks who transition to us from other housing models, and, you know, there's some deplorable situations that people are living in our city.
What's a model that's like failing?
Well, whenever you have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and there may be 7 people living in that space, that's probably not going to be a great
How did they
model.
get to do that? Like, why did how does that start to fail?
Well, it fails from the standpoint of, you
Why
know,
do they do that?
Well, you know why they do that, right?
I don't.
Well, if someone's gonna, so these are when you start talking about profit, right?
Okay.
And if someone is paying X amount per bed, and I can, you know, I know
Okay.
that someone's really desperate,
Got it.
and they're gonna sleep on the couch, on the floor. They don't just want to sleep on the street.
Yeah.
Then what else are they gonna do?
Right.
Right. So on the operator side, we have to first pay very close attention to how do we preserve someone's dignity
Yeah.
in providing housing for
Yeah.
them.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So where do you think where are you going to be in 5 years?
5 years, I think, you know, hopefully we'll still be serving in Anderson County and serving well. We've enjoyed our time. I have some great friendships here. I love what God's doing in Anderson. I love the unity here. The fact that how you and I met.
How did we meet?
Well,
Do you remember?
I'm
horrible about this stuff.
I was looking for property. Our first property we didn't own. We had to lease it. And so I saw this, you know, newly renovated space on B Street in Anderson, and reached out to you. And we met in front of that house, and we began to talk. And I right away told you what I was trying to do.
And you were looking at that other school.
Yes.
The place that ended up being a school with a pastor
Yep.
who I've
And-
come to get to know that whole group of people.
Yeah, Pastor Phil. So Pastor Phil Sears, in fact, we were looking at that model, and we ended up not obviously purchasing that space, but I ended up volunteering in his model,
Right.
and he put me under his wing
That raised you up.
and raised me up. And so I, you know, that also helped me get embraced by the community because of my just willingness to serve him in his ministry.
That's cool.
So in 5 years, I think, you know, there's some other communities, Greenville County, Pickens County, Spartanburg County, that I think would embrace the model. But as far as where I think personally I would be is helping other operators do better in this model with shared housing.
Bringing them up
Yes.
with models they already have.
All models they already have. And I don't think anyone, like, there's such a need from folks transitioning or exiting out of incarceration to exiting out of drug and alcohol rehab to young adults aging out of foster care, to women and kids. There are all these specialty subgroups of folks experiencing homelessness, and I don't think one person can do it all. What I want to do is, from kind of a more of a Christian base, help operators be successful to sustain it, because without the property, you can't help anyone.
I agree, man.
Yeah, you know,
Without the property,
like
it's a pickle, man. It's a funny pickle, but I like having to pursue it. Do you know a fellow named Dick McMillan?
I do not.
Dick is involved with an online Christian school, and I might do this wrong. I apologize, Dick, but they've built their offering around people that are mostly in transition, that need general entry-level education
Interesting.
in lots of avenues. They have a curriculum already out there.
Yeah.
They've also have grant dollars that are very easy to apply for, that pay more than the tuition costs.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And I have put it before the bridge guys to say, like, we got to put these guys to work, put their school system to work. But remind me to give you that guy's information, because
That'd
if
be
we
great.
can get education in the homes, in the hands, so that person's just not waiting to smoke their next cigarette.
That's right. Well, again, like to your point, I think one of those early conversations, and we need to follow up on it, is, obviously just not academic education, but financial literacy and financial education.
Oh man, so easy. And they're basically trapped, not trapped, but they're, they don't have anywhere to go.
That's right.
And it would be a really neat thing to let them get onto an online portal and be paid, because there'd be a surplus of funds after the grant dollars and after paying for tuition.
I think that's excellent, and I would love to hear more about those resources. We're lots of fun. We're right in. This is like a fresh thing that we're dealing with right now across our houses, including some of the houses that we're partnered in with you. But we've found that there's been a surge of folks in the margins getting scammed online. We have folks who are isolated, they're seeking significance and affection, and next thing you know, they're connecting. They have a girlfriend, quote unquote, in Canada, or this superstar person in California, or someone across seas, and they're sending money, or they're giving them their bank accounts, and we're seeing this. And so we've had to start educating our folks on how to avoid these scams, and there are a lot across the city that are falling victim to this.
The hunger that we all have in us for the Lord ends up getting utilized with
That's
the
right.
world's invitations, including friendship, relationship,
That's right.
companionship, and it's an irresistible invite when somebody loves you.
That's right.
This has been so much fun. I want to spend more time talking about all this stuff, we have 15 minutes left. How can we use this time wisely to encourage anyone that you see
I think
to foster activation?
Yeah, I think, I don't even think it takes 15 minutes. I think, again, the ruffling of the feathers for me is, again, to the church, that all the things, all the promises are built on a foundation of love. That covenant of love, whether love God and love our neighbor, everything is built off of that. Even in Galatians 5:6, when it says that faith worketh by love. Everything works by love. Even my giving is insufficient without love. And love is that thing, it's that action where we put others' interests before our very own. This is hard work. If you get into this space waiting for someone to pat you on the back and say how great you are.
You talking about me?
It doesn't come. But, and
Comes
in
from the Lord.
it comes from the Lord. And in Romans 5, it talks about that this hope and this love, it actually comes from the Holy Spirit. Like he actually empowers us to love in this way. And so my encouragement to the church, and especially church in Anderson County, is that we will get a fresh anointing of love for our brothers and sisters who are experiencing some pretty tragic and traumatic circumstances, and that we will respond. And I think if we do, you will begin to see things happen in Anderson that, will be the next move of the church.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that. I really believe that everything is being set up to where we will see some remarkable things, but it takes us just responding to the needs of those most marginalized.
Yeah, because as a culture, we're not struggling against an evil empire that's at risk of taking our safety. We're not struggling to work in the fields and make enough food to feed our families. We're not struggling for like any of the basic human needs. The main thing that we struggle against in America is comfort.
That's right.
The main enemy against light is probably like, you need this for you.
Right. Well,
that I deal with too.
We all do.
And like my father says to me, like, I don't have extra in your hand for you. I have extra in your hand to come through you. And the Bible says that those that refresh others will themselves be refreshed.
That's right.
And like our consumer goods don't refresh us. They only take bandwidth. And I really want to pursue refreshment. It's one of the reasons I wanted to pursue you in this conversation. I got called Friday night at 5 p.m. by a friend that lives in one of the homes because the water pressure was messed up, and I'm assuming water leaks and stuff. And really, it was just an up-down switch on the faucet valve. And I'm fuming a little bit, and I'm like, okay, Father, like, here we go. And but you know who was in tow is Michael, my son, who's 7. He got to like walk through the home and care for people and go to work at Friday at 5, and it blessed me. It certainly it reminded me of how much I have, and how many, and that's not even possession based. Like I have so many strengths and gifts and freedoms and yeah.
Let me share this one story because it actually recently happened in your house. Like this, when I say recently, I mean like yesterday happened. On Saturday night, I get a call and then I get a text message, and it's one of the gentlemen said, AD, I think someone stole money out of my wallet. I had $75. I had my wallet underneath my pillow. I went to the bathroom, and then I was getting ready to go to the store. My sister was picking me up, and I checked my wallet to figure out how much I was going to spend and realized all my money was gone. And so I began to ask him questions about, are you sure? And he said, yes. And I said, well, I'm going to come to the house tomorrow. We're going to have a house meeting. So we get to the house. We get all the 4 gentlemen there. This is a pretty interesting story. So this house has 3 older African-American gentlemen and 1 younger Caucasian male who lives in the house. And the gentleman who had I think he had his money stolen, was in the room with the young guy. And so I began to remind them of our guidelines, what we're really looking for, what we do to preserve the peace in the house.
Yeah.
And then I just went in and said, guys, I'm going to just ask a simple question. I'm going to just go around the room and ask, did you steal the money? And we got all the way around. And the young kid said, AD, I stole the money.
Dang.
And
he stepped up.
He did.
That right there is huge.
It was huge. the only problem was this was his second or third chance because we moved him from another house. And so I wasn't surprised based on some of the details that he stole it. But that part is not even the most powerful part. So part of our motto is, I don't live in the house. Although this was a rule that he broke that would have resulted in him being homeless right away. I always leave room for mercy. So I said, Michael, you step out for a minute. I want to talk to your roommates. And so basically this is the opportunity for those three gentlemen to see if they were going to give him a second chance or not. And it got around. The other two gentlemen said, I think he needs a second chance. I think he needs a second chance. And then the guy who had his money stolen said, AD, let's give him another chance.
Wow.
To me, that's the heart of what we're trying to do. It's not really yes, we need to get people housed, but for someone to have love for their brother in that capacity. And, I'm not taking credit for those men and how they responded. They're part of some local church communities that are pouring into them weekly. But man, that was a win for us. That was a win for us.
And the reason we had this conversation is because I was hoping to put this whole banquet of beauty on display and let anyone that might hear it endeavor to pull a chair up to the table and eat from a banquet of love and blessing that comes through a bunch of different ministries in the Anderson community and a bunch of different ministries in the community that you're in. And everyone that turns this channel on, I know has a heart for change. And so it'd be fun to just ask the Spirit, Father, like, what would you have me do in response to this conversation today? AD, where can people find you or get involved? What can people do to get involved? What is your digital contact?
Well, you can easily find us at our website at www.goodshepherdshouse.com. We don't have all the fancy Instagram and all that. I'm too old for all of that, but you can call us at 864-881-2002. We would love to hear from you if you have anyone who's in need for housing, or if you would like to get involved, be a big brother, be a coach. You have resources that you think that we can help people bring more value to others around them. We would love to hear from you.
Praise the Lord. Thank you guys for joining us today for this wonderful conversation. And if there is something that you need or something that we handled poorly, like just comment in below. And also, I've been listening to you about my interrupting, and I'm sorry, I interrupt my guests too much. So I've heard you. That's some of the feedback I've gotten. And you guys are bringing me up, and that's the purpose of this too. It's not me disseminating information. It's us putting on display through conversation the beauty of God through us, and coming from you guys as well. So like and subscribe below. Kick us to a friend or an acquaintance. There is someone around you right now that's suffering and then on the edge and on the verge and dealing with loneliness, and don't let them isolate you. I pray right now, Father, that you're going to touch the hearts of the listeners with an individual that might need an encouragement. It could be a podcast. It could just mean a text from you. We want to promote and push that concept and that ideology as well as live it. So Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you next episode.